I want to talk about love in the form of so many things, but I want to start from love of self, because I think so many of us are trying to cultivate self-love, but have no idea of actually where to start. So when we think about self-love, what is that in practical terms, and how do we cultivate it in our lives?
That's a great question. Now, here's the thing about self-love. First of all, we have to acknowledge what it is in order to try to achieve it. So what it is the foundation of what we birth the rest of our love from.
Welcome back to the Healed Girl Era podcast with me, Gia Peppers. For episode 6, we are talking all about love with a woman who is perfect for the conversation, Dr. Love McPherson. Known as America's favorite relationship expert, Dr. Love is a certified marriage and family counselor with over a decade of experience in helping individuals and couples get ready to experience healthy love. As someone who has been single for longer than they'd like to admit, I really wanted to have a conversation about cultivating self-love and how to restore the parts of our hearts that have been broken. So listen as Dr. Love and I talk about that and more, and get out your notebooks, y'all. You know the gems are going to be crazy. Let's get into episode 6.
Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Healed Girl Era, the podcast. I'm Gia Peppers, and I am so honored today to be joined by the one and only Dr. Love McPherson. She is a powerhouse speaker, author, a certified life. Now I want to make sure I say it right. Is marriage and family therapist, certified marriage and family therapist, author, life coach, all the things. But today we're going to have a conversation about love and the power of reclaiming your heart. And I just love that you're here with me today. We're going to say love a lot today. If y'all drinking wine or something, that's going to be your drinking word, but no.
I love that.
Thank you, Dr. Love, for being here.
It is such an honor to be with you. We spent a few days on a bus together.
Yeah, shout out to Woman Evolve. This is my second Woman Evolve interview. Y'all go to Woman Evolve. A lot of things come out of it, okay? You run into amazing people, but Dr. Love spoke so beautifully at Woman Evolve, and I was so inspired by that, but also our conversation on the bus. Yeah. And she works quick, y'all. We was on that bus about 30 minutes. And in 22, she had me thinking about life differently. So I was like, I had to have you on this podcast.
I am so honored. I'm excited about today. Let's go.
Let's get into it now. This is going to come out in the good love month, February, which is going to be so amazing. It always makes you think about, 1, Black History Month, but 2, love. Valentine's Day comes up, triggers a lot of us. It is a day of celebration for some of us. But I want to talk about love in the form of so many things, but I want to start from love of self. Because I think so many of us are trying to cultivate self-love, but have no idea of actually where to start. So when we think about self-love, what is that in practical terms, and how do we cultivate it in our lives?
That's a great question. Now, here's the thing about self-love. First of all, we have to acknowledge what it is in order to try to achieve it. So what it is the foundation of what we birth the rest of our love from. And here's the thing. When you have self-love, it doesn't just flow over to romantic love. It flows over to the love you share to your children, the parents share to each other, friends, and things like that. So unhealthy self-love actually can spark dysfunction, abuse, neglect, on all sorts of things. So with self-love, there are some relationship skills that we have to master. Some of the relationship skills that we will master for ourselves and then spill over to each other, to other people, is this. The first one is compassion. Self-love requires compassion. Compassion is the foundation. So what happens is, the way that people have treated us will impact our identity and how we see ourselves. So if we are being treated like we're not enough, if we're being treated like we're a burden, if we have been neglected or rejected, a lot of times what we will do is we'll take that as a self-worth issue, and then we will actually see ourselves through the eyes of our abusers, the people who neglected us, the people who rejected us. We have to look with fresh eyes at ourselves with compassion like God does. And so as we look at ourselves, then we reprogram anything inside of us that has spoken lies about who we are, has neglected our own selves, rejected our own selves, and that requires self-talk, because it was talk, it was behaviors that got us there. It's going to be talk, behaviors that will get us back to a different place in life.
I love that. That's the behavior, the talk, the self-talk is so key. When I think about like my own healing journey and my own return to love, shout out to the author who wrote that book, Marion. Marion wrote that, right? Or Bell? Was that Bell? Bell, because I'm thinking about Marion's is something different but love. A Return to Love, Bell Hooks. Shout out to her, because that book really broke it down in ways that were way too much for me to handle. I only got through half of it. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm gonna get to the other half. But when I think about a return to love, I thought about the space that I wanted to create for my heart to be important again. I think for so long I neglected my own heart because no one asked about it. No one cared about it. I got so content with showing up as the version of me that was business and girl boss and striving to be a hustler and all that stuff, that I forgot about my heart. And when I really sat down and realized that I had neglected my own love, that started from self and it went everywhere else. And so for those of us who haven't even had the time to sit with our hearts and really check in yet, where do we start on our journey back to self-love?
One of the things you have to do is make a decision. The first thing is a decision. And then, I took a CPR class, right? And one of the things that it tells you about when you are at risk of stroke and things like that, or you see somebody who's suffering from poison or any kind of emergency situation, the emergency alert action steps are, it is check, call, and care.
Wow.
And actually, it's the same formula for an emotional heart. Check on your heart. Take a look and examination before you start messing with people who have fallen or look like they're suffering from heat exhaustion or have the injury. You have to first check and ask questions. And ask questions about yourself. That last relationship, what happened there? Who am I now that I wasn't then? And see, trauma is the Greek word for emotional wound. So there may be wounds that has happened to your heart. There may be just pain, but pains are indicators that there's something deeper that's happening physically and emotionally. There may be a disease that you have in your heart that has come from serious generational trauma. See, that's been stored up, right? So you may be in what stage or generation of trauma are you in? And so you have to go first and do a checkup on your heart. After that, the next stage is call. You may have to call the psychiatrist or a book or call on Jesus or call somebody who can help you. Call usually means 911, but call somebody who will help you professionally, who has the ability to and train to not further hurt you. The last stage is care. And now you have to decide, now that I know what's wrong, now that somebody is about to help me, I got to care enough to make sure I'm okay through the healing process.
This is so good, because the generational trauma part, I never even thought about with love or your heart. Like, I know that mentally we carry those things. I know that in our wombs, we existed in our grandmother's, like our eggs existed there. Like, I know that we carry DNA, but for some reason, the heart was one of the things that I just didn't equate to carrying the pain and things like that from the heart space. How do you identify if it's generational when you're asking yourself those questions?
Good question. What you do is you look for patterns. And just like anything else, you look for patterns of behavior. Look back and see, what are you doing and repeating dysfunctionally that your parents did? What are you doing to yourself that somebody else did? Now, here's the thing. I don't know anything about your life or any of that, and this may not be relevant. However, but you made a statement. You said, I stopped looking at my heart because nobody else was watching it. Well, some people are saying that in relationship to childhood trauma, that nobody was watching their heart. Sometimes there are parents, not yours, I'm just talking in general. There are parents out there who are living their own life, who have also had dysfunction and are not used to taking care of themselves or anybody else as far as in a loving way, in a healthy, loving way. And so what ends up happening is you'll repeat traumas and things from the past, and everybody will continue to pass on their traumas of heart pain. That's the foundation. That's the organ that's pumping blood, oxygen, life to you. So the heart is really the heart health. Emotional heart health is what keeps functions and relationships together. So if you're not checking on your heart and you're saying, handing this heart to people and say, handle it with care. But you're not handling it with care. You're asking for somebody else to do more for you than you've done for yourself.
Jeez. Lord. Okay. We are 11 minutes in. I've been dragged. I think that's so important because my family is so close and we are an amazing support system for each other. But I think all oldest siblings have the trauma of being like, they didn't care about me in the way that we all look at somebody else in our siblingships that we think that they got treated better, they got more attention. And if you ask my brother and sister the same, they'll say the same thing. They'll be like, well, you got treated better and it's funny, but I do remember feeling like, kind of alone sometimes in my childhood, because I think the great thing about being the oldest is that you absolutely get 2 or 3 or how many siblings you might have, best friends that are God-given. But at first you're like, well, I didn't ask for the responsibility or the role modelship or any of that. I just want to be a kid. And so I do think that maybe somewhere along the way it might have been a foundation there. And I don't want to go too deep into my mom's story on this, but my mom has been through some things and had to figure it out. And I think that she absolutely was doing her best in showing us how to be people who could absolutely take care of themselves financially, physically, spiritually. She brought us to church. She was like, whatever I don't have, God's going to give you, which was a great thing because we still love God from the way that she taught us to love him. And now we have our own relationships. But I do know my mom has had her own trauma. Her mother had her trauma. Her mother had her trauma as well. And so I think that's the power of the generational,
So let me ask you something. Do you love your mom?
Oh, to death.
Okay, so let me tell you something. You asked me earlier how to manifest our own self-love, right? And I told you about compassion. What you did was you looked at your mom. You saw her faults. You saw her pain, and you had compassion on her. And you chose to love her in spite of her faults. You chose to love her in spite of the fact that maybe she didn't have the capacity to give you everything you needed, how you needed it because of your personality type. But in spite of all of that, you have compassion on your mom, and the compassion shows up now as a graduated relationship of love to death, to life, okay? Yes. And now let me tell you something. What if you can look at your own self and see what you've been through? See that there were times in your childhood where you had you had all these responsibilities. You just wanted to be independent. In spite of that, you're giving your mother grace for being a new parent. Yes. You're giving her grace because of what she's gone through. You're giving her grace because of so much. That's what self-love is. You give yourself grace. You see that you've made some mistakes. You see that you don't have everything you need, but you love yourself anyway. You treat yourself good. You attend to yourself. And see, I don't care what level of need you had as a child that maybe your mom wasn't in tune with. If she needs something, Gia's going to show up.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what? When Gia needs something, Gia need to show up.
Amen. There it is.
Gia need to show up for Gia. We need to show up for ourselves and stop expecting other people to show up for us after we have neglected ourselves, and they have to pick up the pieces of what we didn't do and also fulfill their own responsibilities.
What does self-neglect look like in practice? Like in day-to-day life, just for all of us so we can see it, call it out when it happens. What does self-neglect look like?
You know what? Self-neglect looks different for different traumas. So for a person who is, say, a parentified child, so that person has been a parent to their siblings or a parent to their parent. Maybe the parent was on drugs or addiction or something like that. So for a parentified child, in order to survive, they had to say, guess what? The only way I get to survive is through this adult in my life. And I know that. Therefore, I will do whatever I need to do in order to survive. So they start mastering skills of survival. So some of those skills might be being a good girl. I'll be the best girl, mommy. So if you could just love me and accept me, I'll be the best girl. So now this person has that skill, and every time they go to places and engage in relationships, they're just trying to be the good girlfriend or the good friend, and they neglect themselves when they want to set boundaries, because they have learned and mastered and believe that the only way to get love is to be the good girl or to assume the role of your parent. You don't really want to be a parent. You kind of want to go out and party, or you want to work, or whatever you want to drink. So guess what? I'll parent you. You don't have to parent me. I'll parent you. I will give up my childhood to be a parent. So now they parent their parents or they parent their siblings. And in order to do that, they have to be hyper vigilant. They have to understand survival skills. When they are they have to know how to lie, because you got to know how to get to school and not make it look like my parents weren't there for me. All of these different things that they have to master in skills. But a lot of times what happens is this: because of those childhood wounds and those childhood skills, they never stop to say, I don't need those anymore. I can change that. I am not in survival mode. I'm okay. I need to learn how to have a different relationship that's healthier. And so, and if they continue, they will have codependent relationships where they're like, oh, you don't have to be the boyfriend. You could just be somebody I take care of, and you could just not have a job, and I'll work, and you don't have to be a husband. You could be a child or a baby man, and you could just play games and take my car and go see your girlfriend while I go to work. You understand? These are some of the things, and I'm speaking to women, but it can be other things for men. And what I'm saying is, understand in practical terms what your default switch is. When you take a television home from the store, there's a settings, and you have to adjust the settings to get lighter hues and things like that. But there's adjusting a factory setting. Your factory setting is what you learned at home. But sometimes that's not what you want to look at every day, or nobody else wants to look at. You have to adjust the settings. Sometimes the programming is limited, and you need to buy some apps for some more programming. And what I'm saying to you is, in relationships, sometimes people don't want to look at that screen looking at like that. It's pretty dark. Sometimes you have a limited programming. You only know how to holler when you get mad. You only know how to retreat. You've got to learn how to some different programming and not continue to retreat back to default setting.
You was talking general, but you talking to me. I mean, the thing is, because I've learned one thing about dating, okay? It's a lot, because you have to put yourself out there and be vulnerable, and you don't know if this man has the greatest intentions for you, but you just have to show up, because what if he does? And then, well, if I don't say how I feel, then I can't really be upset if something bad happens because I didn't really say how I was. I mean, it's all these things. And in this day and age, dating is so much harder to connect because it's also, if you come from apps especially, that space of just liking and like it feels like a game sometimes. Like even more than everybody always says dating was a game, love is a game, love is a losing game. Shout out to Amy Winehouse. Like everybody's always said that, right? But I think it got exacerbated with all of the things, all of the Bumbles, Hinge, Raya, whatever you're on. It feels like it's a game. And so I'm even more terrified of the dating experience because I don't see it as a game. So I'm having trouble allowing my vulnerability to lead me in those situations where I don't know if my heart is safe yet, but I don't want to not be myself. So what do I do?
One of the things that all of that. Well, you know what? What I love, you've already checked, okay? You've checked that your heart has some fear in it, right?
Yes.
And so we know that that's a problem because that's a symptomatic behavior. Fear is a symptom of something that has gone wrong that has caused some kind of fear, okay? So at some point, somebody treated your heart like a game, and it was hurt at some point. I don't know you or your love life.
Yeah, I have several points. If I'm being completely and totally honest, I think it was probably all the way from my first love to the last guy I really, really liked and like showed my heart. Like they have all treated it at some point or another at the end of it like it was a game. And I think I started to be like I haven't had a serious relationship in years. I think I started to be like, it ain't even worth it. If this is what's out here, I got too much to do, like you said, and like the Bible said, all things flow from our heart. If my heart is hurt, I can't show up as a host. I can't show up as I can, but I'm limping through it. And so I started to put my career before everything. And like I said, yes, that helped me be successful, but on the back end, I hadn't checked on my heart. And so now that I'm re-entering the dating space, I do want to be better at creating space for my heart to be safe, but also having the discernment to know where not to show it.
And here's the thing. You can have the discernment, but people have their own will. And you have to accept that. You really do have to accept that you can't control somebody's soul. The soul is your will, your desires. God does not control our soul either. He would that we choose him. He would that we choose life, but he doesn't control that space.
So relinquish control.
Relinquish control.
And if I get hurt, I get hurt.
But you know what? You'll recover. You will be okay. When the healing process, the reason why you're working on you is because you'll see that you don't really get to kill my heart. You may put it in a painful position, but I have the resilience to come back. You will never control. See, you're talking about control. So a lot of times we want to control externally. But guess what? What about focusing on self-control where you say, I will never, and it's not about not letting you in. It's about understanding who you are, loving yourself enough where there is a boundary between falling apart and not recovering. You may feel pain. You may feel fall apart. But you know what? A lot of times, especially in as Christians, when we are in pain, we don't immediately, just because the doctor says something, oh, you got fibroids, or we don't, oh my God, I'll never recover. You immediately start thinking, okay, what do I do to get better, right?
Yep.
You have to take on the same mindset. in relationships. Graduate them slowly. If you, the apps will be more manageable if you were looking for a friend. They don't even qualify to get to the next level until you first interview them as a friend. You understand? It takes the pressure off. If a friend is somebody okay, maybe I can, you're kind, maybe, all of these different things. Take the pressure off of that. And let your heart take baby steps up the ladder. Yeah. Especially if it's been injured. Let it take baby steps. Also, understand the condition. Is it good enough for the long haul? Now, I'm going to give you an analogy, and then I'm going to come back to what exactly to do about about a broken heart, okay? Yeah. So years ago, I was in the Chicago, one of the marathons here in Chicago that happened in the summer. I was living downtown on the lakefront. I would watch these people had these marathons. They would block off Lakeshore Drive on my right, and I'm on the 21st floor, so I can look on the balcony and watch it. And I decided I was going to train for a marathon, not a marathon, a half marathon. Okay, okay, because I went from zero walking to it was going to be 13.1 miles.
That's amazing. That's
and so
amazing.
we trained all the time. Right about 6 weeks before the marathon was about to happen, I had an injury and hurt my ankle and twisted it. But I was just and I was off of it, and I was on crutches. And it was time for us to decide whether we're going to have the marathon. And I just thought, and my husband and I was training together, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. Well, let me tell you something. Did I come in dead last? I tell you, it was horrible. It was, and because I was still hurt and I was not really prepared and healthy enough for the long haul, while I was out there in those streets, this is the thing. I'm Love McPherson, right? I'm used to being like, oh yeah. This is what I saw out on the street. You can do it. They're feeling sorry for me. So now that's a blow to my ego. Then I'm trying my best, but I'm trying, and all I'm thinking is I could cut through that alley, because see, these people then went down the street. They on their way back. I could cut down that alley and cheat. So I'm thinking about cheating. Then we went past our favorite breakfast restaurant. I was like, Tony, well, let's just turn in and have breakfast and forget this marathon. So these are what I'm doing, all while I'm trying to achieve a goal. I said that analogy because a lot of times you see the same type of behavior in romantic relationships when we're not ready. Ugh. First of all, we're looking to see, are you pitying me, or how you really treating me? Even people who, around us, because we are insecure about our own performance until we are reading sympathy that we don't want out of the eyes of other people. So we're getting angry at people who are trying to take care of us. They had water, they had claps, but I was upset with them for feeling sorry for me. The second thing is cheating. Yeah. Just cheated. Because I'm scared. Let's self-sabotage this. Let's just go to the breakfast place. All because the whole time my ankle was not healthy enough for the long haul. Relationships, marriage require a long haul. It requires skills. It requires fitness, emotional fitness, heart fitness. All of that has to be intact in order to make it happen. Eventually, a bus came past with all the slow people, moved us up a little further to catch up with some of the other people. And then I did cross the line. But I didn't really cross it and do all up 13 miles. Sometimes we say, this is all I have. I need to stop and get help. We need to humble ourselves and receive the help so that we can get across the finish line. That might be counseling. Yeah. That might be whatever it is. Yeah. And what I'm saying to you is this. Check. After all those relationships, you still want it. You want love. You desire love. In fact, even the little girl wanted love. And the fact that people didn't give it to you will actually resurface her. Yeah. Where she will feel once again like, good people. They might have been decent people, but they just didn't see you and didn't manifest your needs. And what I'm saying to you is you still overcame, but this time decide, maybe I should look at them, and I don't have to be completely healed, but I need to be healed enough to say, as you're out there in the dating pool,
in the streets,
in them streets, but in that dating pool, if you pull up a goldfish, be healed enough to say, too many bones, plus they be having disease and stuff, I'll throw it back.
Throw it.
See, because the bones, if I try to cook a goldfish, the bones could hurt me, and the disease can kill me. Be healed enough to throw back a goldfish. Be healed enough to spot dysfunction. Be healed enough to choose you. Be healed enough to see you. That's what you don't just. It's managing some of this stuff, but be healed enough to actually go the long haul when different seasons of relationship happen.
Be healed enough to choose you is a word that I needed today. Okay, this was good. Okay, you said you were going to get to how to heal a broken heart, but I do want to touch quickly because you said so. Oh Lord, you said so much. It was so good. You said
I do want. Do you want me to touch on the broken heart?
Yeah, touch on the broken heart. But there was something else that let me think for 2 seconds. I think and that's the only thing I need my pen sometimes so I can write down my good questions. But dating as a woman of faith. Yes, because you talked about that a little bit. Now, dating as a woman of faith in 2024 is not easy. Everyone, we can pretty much say that for Black women who want to get married to Black men who are straight and, single, the numbers are a little bleak out here. It's not 100% going to happen. There's a lot of women I know that are single and amazing and believers and accomplished and all these things and want love, and it just hasn't found us. We haven't found it yet. Dating as a woman of faith, navigating the space is hard enough if you don't have certain beliefs. It adds a little more pressure when you're like, okay, I need to get into heaven. Right? I would like him to be like, well, you okay? Almost, we got to have a conversation, but I at least still want to get in. What would you tell women who are trying to make sure they're in the dating world? Coming across like you do want to date, right? I think a lot of women in the church, we've been raised to be buttoned up and modest to a fault, to the point where men don't even know that we're interested in dating, especially in this day and age. So how do we balance that? How do we open ourselves up to allow dating in our lives without losing ourselves to what we know to be true about faith?
And you know what? That last statement is probably the most powerful statement in that question to what we know about faith. Because a lot of times what I find is people have read the Bible, but they don't know the Bible. They don't know what they read. And here's the thing. We are having expectations, Old Testament expectations of dating without even a resemblance of what it looked like. Okay, so, and I don't want to give a whole big, long Bible thing, but dating it was very different. Marriage was very different. It was, it was the little girls got married and it was a transaction between the father and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so now we have adult women who have careers and who are trying to marry and things like that. What we have to do is, first of all, we have to say, is everybody going to die married who wanted to be married? Just look around. Do you see people who have passed on and never gotten married and wanted to get married? I have. Would you be okay with that? What if that is the life you live? So should you be fixated on marriage or should you be fixated on life? And here's the thing. Even when I say fixated on life, and it is, I'm not trying to minimize it. It's not easy, But what I would say to single women, whether you're in the church or not, you all live your best life. Because a lot of times happiness is we think we will be happier. Because we see single life, people say, oh, you might be saying, I'm happy single. But we've told you you'll be happier married. And if you look and stop and pause, that's not always the truth, because relationships is a character building factory. So relationships is what brings you to look at yourself, self-examine, and begin to create work related to it. So when you're asking for marriage, and it's honorable, the companionship, I'm not negating that's important.
Yeah.
But what I am going to say is this. A lot of times we don't know what we're asking for. We don't really know, because when we do that, we are really asking to see any childhood wounds, any childhood traumas, any pain, any type of fears be exposed. That's what we're asking for, is full exposure to someone else. And then we're asking them to love us in spite of, and to love ourselves in spite of. And so what I am saying to you is this. It's a good thing. I've been married for 40 years, but I've had to learn and see different things about myself. So what I would say to a married woman, a single woman in the church is this. Enjoy your single life. Create a bucket list. Don't wait. It's kind of like, you ever say, oh, I'm going on a vacation in the summer, and you've been waiting, and it's raining on that vacation. It's a big letdown. No, I'm not saying it's going to be a letdown. That's my confession. But what I am saying is this. Live every day to its fullest, and don't compromise your values, because your values, stay true to your core values. Your core values is who you are.
Yeah.
It is the core is your place of reproduction. It's like the core of an apple. It is that birthplace of reproduction. So if you neglect yourself and your core, then you have turned on yourself for somebody else. And that's too big of a price to pay. Oof. So what I am saying is this. What you are doing, you're being successful. However, don't use it as a distraction, but use it as a place of purpose. And I'm not saying you don't have it as a place of purpose. What I am saying to you is make sure it's not fueling a distraction and an avoidance to have to deal with the trauma. Do both.
Yeah.
As you are healing, as you are healed enough, as you are open, the last thing I'm going to say is, if you want a relationship, you got to date.
Yeah, you won't just come to my door.
Okay, the Rapunzel effect is just probably not.
Okay, let down my brain.
Okay, we got to get out there. But the main thing is that you have realistic expectations.
Yeah,
you are healed enough. You don't compromise. You take a stand. Understand the realities of what the Bible talks about. Make sure you don't over glorify, over fantasize what you saw and read, because you are reading with Western eyes.
That's good. That's really good. That this is also helpful, and I think the real, there's so many things to take away, but one, the dating, getting out there and dating, but also trusting that I'll be okay is key for me, because I think I haven't said that enough to myself. I'm big on self-talk. I'm really big on journaling. I've just gotten back into therapy, and that's been game-changing for me. But I think the most important thing is like that heart work. I haven't really done enough of that call, that check, and that care. And so I'm really grateful for all that you just dropped on us. And I remember what I was about to ask. So you were saying in one of your answers that we have to manage our expectations. Don't go too far in. My issue is, yes, I want to be your friend, but after 3 weeks, I'm already planning the wedding mentally. I've already had our house where we're going to live. How do I tailor my Disney-fied expectations. Like, it's just I can tell you from the time I was 13 to the time I'm 33, 3 weeks is all it takes for me to be fantasizing about my life with this human being. And I wish I was lying to you. Now, I don't go there. I won't say that. But mentally, it's already started. How do I calm the fantasy down and make sure that I'm not like putting too much on a person that I'm still just getting to know?
And
why do we do that?
That is so important because that actually is the answer to a lot of your fear.
Whew. Okay, y'all, we are going to take a break right here. I told you this episode would be filled with gems. Dr. Love has so much more to share about self-love, about dating as a woman of faith, about cultivating and creating space for our hearts to heal. So we are going to drop part 2 of this interview next week. Stay tuned and subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube to be the first to know about this interview when it drops. Thank you all so much for listening. Follow at Healed Girl Era Pod for more, and follow Dr. Love at Love_McPherson online. We'll see you next week.